Hey guys, welcome back to the Knitting Expat Podcast Channel. I am here today to do a bit of a Rhinebeck recap slash haul slash what happened, and also chat a little bit about what I've been knitting whilst I was away. So I had hoped on doing a podcast before I left for Rhinebeck, but it just didn't work out that way. There's a lot going on this month, but yeah, I got back from Rhinebeck yesterday. Technically I got home yesterday morning, and yes, just had a little bit of time to recuperate before I sit down and do this. I have done a vlog, and the vlog will have gone up before this video. I decided to split this video into two bits, one vlog and one sort of recap slash haul slash what I was knitting sort of video, because I have a feeling, and I haven't edited it yet, but I have a feeling the vlog is going to be quite long, so I thought breaking it up into two videos might make it more manageable for people. So here we go. First up, this is my Rhinebeck sweater. I thought I would wear it and talk a bit about it, because I haven't actually shown this on the podcast as a finished object yet, but it is finished. This is the Rhapsody in Cables pullover by Locateli. I think this is actually the only pattern I've knit by another designer this whole year. Otherwise everything I've knit this year has been my own designs or vanilla socks. So this is the Rhapsody in Cables pullover. I will try and stand up a little bit and show you. That's the front, and the back there also has cables all down the back, and the sleeves are all cabled. It is an all-over cabled pullover. This is the first time I've actually knit an all-over cabled garment. It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. In the grand scheme of things, it didn't actually take that long knitting time wise. There was a big period of time where I wasn't working on it at all. I started this on a holiday in July, beginning of July, so I worked on it then for about 3-4 days, and I got most of the front of one side and part of the sleeve done, and then it went on hold for 4 to 6 weeks ish before I picked it up again, just because we were moving into our home and things were a bit all over the place, and I didn't have time to sit and work on it. And then I finally sat down, got cracking on it, and pretty much knit it throughout the month of September and the beginning of October, and finished it off, and it's now done. It is finished. I'm so happy with it. A couple of modifications, only 2 minor ones. One, I knit the bottom ribbing a little bit longer than the pattern calls for, and I knit the sleeves longer than the pattern calls for. I think if I'd knit the sleeves according to the pattern, they would have ended like right at the elbow on me, the length the pattern called for, and it's just, quite frankly, cutting me off at the elbow is just not a flattering look. I personally actually probably would have preferred full length sleeves, but I wasn't going to have enough yarn to do that. So I've got kind of slightly longer than 3/4 length, but not quite full length sleeves. It's actually not a bad sleeve length, to be honest. It's not the worst. I just usually like to have the option of having a full length sleeve, because then I can always push it up or roll it up if I wanted to. But I really enjoyed it. I felt like the pattern was very well written. Hohi's patterns are always pretty well written, I find. I've never had any issues with them. And yeah, like, it's an interesting construction, because you start in the middle and you work one side, then the sleeve, and you work the other side, then the sleeve, then you pick up stitches along the back and you do the back. It's a very interesting construction method. It's obviously a side to side and then down the back, and then you seam the sides, and then you do the hem, and it's interesting. So if you're interested in something that's a little bit more than just your typical raglan pullover, or like top down pullover or bottom up pullover, this is something definitely a bit different and worth giving it a go. It looks beautiful. Even though it is all over cabled, I didn't use a cable needle once for this pullover. You really don't need one. The cables are small enough that you can do them without a cable needle. So if that is something that is intimidating you, or you are like not wanting to faff around with a cable needle, you don't have to use one if you know how to cable without a cable needle, which is essentially how I did the whole thing. You really don't need it. You can Google, there are loads of YouTube tutorials on how to cable without a cable needle, so if you want to learn more about how to do that, you can. Alright, so jumping on in, and before we start this, I will readily admit that my Rhinebeck haul is somewhat obscene for someone who really doesn't need any more yarn. But having said that, I will also preface this by saying that a lot of this yarn is yarn support for future designs, and some of it was kindly gifted to me by friends. So I will explain exactly which ones I purchased and which ones were gifted to me or given to me for yarn support. So just putting it out there, the giant bag of stuff next to me is a bit crazy, but there again, I was not anticipating this amount of yarn coming home with me. But also I knew some of it would, because I had discussed with people ahead of time that about yarn support for upcoming designs, and you know, we just discussed that I would see them at Rhinebeck and get the yarn then, saves everyone on the shipping. So so with that in mind, I figured let's just jump right on in with the haul. And if you're not interested in the haul and you just want to hear about what I've been knitting, I will leave a timestamp on the screen here for you, so you can skip right ahead and get to the knitting. Starting with, so the people I was staying with at Rhinebeck, because I was traveling on my own without Perry or Layla, so I was staying with some friends. I actually ended up staying in a house with Sam, who's the dyer behind Lavender Loon, Stephanie, who's the dyer behind Asylum Fibres, and her friend Janice, and then there were 3 other people who were also staying at the house. There was Sarah, who's Love Sock Wool, and she also has a podcast. And then there was Shayna and Louise as well, who were friends of the other ladies in the house as well. So there were 7 of us staying at this house. It was really lovely. It was a nice little Airbnb in Kingston, which is around the corner from Rhinebeck, not too far. And yeah, it was really nice actually. It was really friendly household, and everyone got on really well with each other, which was lovely. I was actually sharing a room with Sam, and we hadn't discussed this before, but I'd taken a little gift for her, and she'd obviously thought the same and bought a little gift for me as well, so I thought I'd quickly share that. She gave me one of her Lavender Loon mugs, which is beautiful, and I'm actually really glad I managed to get it home safely without it breaking. It's quite funny because I came home and I said to Perry that I got another mug, but that it was a gift, so it doesn't count against my mug buying ban. I'm actually now going to have to rearrange the kitchen cupboards so there's more space for mugs, because we now don't have space on the mug shelf anymore. But that is fine. She also brought me some coffee from Minnesota, which is where she's from. Yummy coffee beans. And some handmade soap. Bamboo charcoal detox bar. So look forward to trying that out. And of course some yarn. She gifted me a skein of her raw honey colourway on her sport base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon. I absolutely fell in love with this colourway over the weekend. She also had a jumper that was a sample for her booth out of this colourway, and it is so beautiful knit up. It is gorgeous. I was saying to her afterwards, like I couldn't get this colourway out of my mind, and I was saying to her afterwards that this wants to be something at some point, and I can't decide what it wants to be yet. And once I've decided what it wants to be and what weight it wants to be in, then I'm gonna be hitting her up for the yarn for it, because for that design, because this is amazing and totally my colour. So I had also offered Sam my help for Indie Untangled. So Sam and Stephanie were actually sharing a booth at Indie Untangled, which is like a trunk show pre-Rhinebeck on the Friday night. And so a bunch of indie dyers and makers sort of are brought together by the lovely Lisa, who runs Indie Untangled, to put on a trunk show. And so I said to Sam that if you need some help at the booth, I'm more than happy to come hang out. I had designed a shawl, the Hunter's Moon shawl, for it to be launched at Indie Untangled, using both Sam and Stephanie's yarns in the shawl, which I've shown previously on the podcast. The pattern is now available. I will try and remember to leave a link below. And there's always a link to my Ravelry shop. I'll try and leave a direct link to the pattern as well. And I actually don't have the shawl to show you at the moment, because I left the shawl with Sam to use as a show sample as well for future shows. She's doing another one in a couple of weeks, so I wanted her to have it for that. And yeah, so I helped out at Indie Untangled, which was a lot of fun. It's the first time that I've helped out at a show like that, and it's the first time I've been at a show from the very beginning to the very end, and boy, it's exhausting. Indie Untangled was a long day. The event started at 12, which was like the first hour was like the vendors shopping time. So That was nice and quiet, and then from 1 until 8 it was open. It was ticketed entry, and it was a long day. From 12 till 8 being on your feet the whole time was exhausting. Because I have a bad back, and I know my limits, I know I can't stand on my feet the whole time. I did take breaks frequently to go and sit down to give my back a break, and we did take it in turns, so a couple of us could leave the booth at any one time and either go shop around or go sit down, go chat to people, whatever. So it was actually a really nice balance, I felt. It didn't feel like it was that long. The day did go by pretty quickly, and at one point I did duck out to go get coffee for myself and Sam, so there were some breaks in the day. But overall it was a really lovely experience. Got to see so many people again and had such a great time. So in terms of yarns that I picked up at Indie Untangled, Nicole of Hue Loco was also vending again this year. She vended last year, I believe, for the first time at Indie Untangled, and she was there again this year. It was so lovely to catch up with her again. I hadn't seen her since last year's Rhinebeck, and that's kind of a running theme with this video, is like seeing people that I hadn't seen since last year. So it was really nice to finally get to catch up with her again, and we ended up actually going out for dinner after Indie Untangled. So yeah, and Nicole was very kind, and she actually gifted me all the yarn that I wanted to purchase from her. She wouldn't let me buy it. So I picked up these 3 skeins of her yarn. So this one here I absolutely fell in love with is Beach Glass. It's an 80/20 superwash merino nylon fingering weight. They're all fingering weight. It's absolutely gorgeous. She actually had this on a bulky base, her new bulky base, which is also a beautiful base. And because she didn't have a lot of bulky with her, I didn't want to like take her stock right at the beginning of the day. But I did say to myself that if the 2 skeins of this colorway were left on bulky at the end of the day, I'd go back and get it purchase it from her. But they were gone pretty soon, and I wasn't surprised because they were so beautiful. And then this one is also on the same base, the merino sock, and this is Nightingale. So one of the things I was on the lookout for at Rhinebeck, or just over that whole weekend in general, was more skeins of sock yarn in more masculine or more traditionally masculine colours. For my dad, my brother, my father-in-law mainly. My brother will wear more crazy colours, and so does my dad, but I feel like their more traditionally manly colours are the socks that they wear the most, especially for my brother who has like business meetings and stuff, and he personally doesn't feel comfortable wearing really loud socks. And so he said to me in the past that like if I knit him socks in these sorts of colours, he'd be able to wear them more, because he'd be able to wear them to work as well as when he's not at work. So I was joking with people saying that I'm the only person going to Rhinebeck looking for single skeins of sock yarn. Usually that seems to be the thing people are trying to avoid to do at Rhinebeck or over that weekend, and people are trying to be more purposeful, buying for specific projects rather than just picking up random single skeins of sock yarn. But that was what I was there for, which was quite funny. And finally I picked up the skein of Moss on the Phyllis sock base, which I absolutely love this colorway. Again, this was one I fell in love with. I just very much my green. I love this sort of green, which is like veering on the more yellow side. Beautiful. And then this next thing from Nicole is actually yarn support for an upcoming pattern. So it's a single skein on the merino sock again in the New Yorker colorway, which is a really lovely sort of speckled grey neutral, and I love the name, the New Yorker. And one of her Colour Riot kits, mini skein kits. So these are 12 10-gram minis. It's 120 grams plus 100 grams, so 220 grams. And this is going to be a shawl design. So if you remember, next year I've got 3 pattern clubs coming out. There's the sock pattern club for the first 4 months. Then there's going to be a mini skein pattern club, so a pattern club that utilizes mini skeins. And so this is going to be a shawl for one of those patterns in that club, which I'm so excited about. I'm so inspired and so excited after that weekend. It's been amazing. So this is going to be for that. And thank you again to Nicole for being so generous. I will attempt to leave links below this video to all the different makers that I talk about in this video, and I say I will attempt because there is a good chance I will forget somebody, and if I've forgotten somebody, please leave me a comment and I'll make sure to go back and add the link because I don't want to forget anyone. I also, for the first time, finally got to meet Steve and Andy, who are the dyers behind Leading Men Fibre Arts. Steve is also a knitter, but Andy, his partner, is not a knitter, but is a full-time dyer, which I think is amazing, even though he is not a knitter himself at all. So I picked up a couple of skeins from them. These two 50-gram sock skeins is in the Smoky Quartz colourway. It's on the Showstopper Intermission. I think Intermission is the like the half skein version, but it's the Showstopper base, which is 75-25 superwash merino, 25% nylon, and this is going to be for one of the patterns in the sock club for next year. I really wanted a yellow based or ish sort of colour, so this is like a really lovely golden yellow colour. Again, very much my colour, you know, very sort of similar colour house. So that's what this is going to be. It's going to be one of the patterns next year's club. So this is actually going to get wound up pretty soon. And the other one, so this one, like I said, was yarn support, so I didn't pay for that, but I did pay for this one. And this is on the Showstopper base, same base, 75-25, and the colourway is Independent Will. And I have a feeling that is the name they give to their one-of-a-kind colourways, because I saw someone else picked up an Independent Will colourway and it was pinks, and it's very much not this colour. So I think it's just their term for a one-of-a-kind. And again, this is one of the more sort of like masculine, I use quotes because I don't think there's really masculine or feminine colours, but when I say more masculine sock yarns, I mean more traditionally, what is considered more traditionally masculine colours, like greys and darker colours, and nothing too loud. So that was those. And then comes to my lovely booth buddies, Sam and Stephanie, who were both very generous as well. Stephanie asked if I needed yarn for a upcoming pattern, and actually yes, I did need one more skein of sock yarn for one of the sock patterns for next year, and I wanted a purple one, and she had this gorgeous purple colourway, which I could not resist. This is the Shadow colourway, and I picked this up on the Madhouse base, which was a slight error because I intended to pick it up on a nylon blend base. This is 100% superwash merino. I absolutely don't mind knitting socks out of 100% superwash merino, so this pair will actually just be for me. I tend to not gift socks that I've knit out of 100% superwash merino to other people because I don't want them to have to worry about the care. I am more than happy to take care of my socks in a more delicate way if necessary, depending on the base or whatever. Although I have machine washed my 100% superwash merino socks, no problem. It's just, I will probably keep this one for myself anyway, because I think the pattern I wanted to use with this one was one I wanted to keep for me. So 100% superwash merino, silent fibres, Shadow colourway, Madhouse base, beautiful. So thank you again to Stephanie for that. Stephanie also gave me one of her enamel pins and one of her silent fibres, like injection pens, which is really quite cute. So it's just a ballpoint pen, but it looks like a like an injection. I guess I'll show you the pins while I'm here, since I'm showing you pins. I'd pre-ordered a couple of the Rhinebeck themed pins that Shelley Can had done, because she also had a booth there, and I picked them up at Rhinebeck, at Indie Untangled rather. So one is the Leaping Llama, and one is the coffee with the apple cider donut, which says New York State Sheep and Wool 2018. New York Sheep and Wool rather 2018, which I thought were really cute. So those will be also added to the pin collection. And I did pick up two more pins. This one I picked up from Canon Hand Dyes, the Canon Hand Dyes booth, and this is by Nerdbird Makery, and it says, "Nevertheless she knitted." And the phrase is, "Nevertheless she persisted, but nevertheless she knitted." There we go. And so I really like that. And this is another one that I'd had my eye on for a while, but I hadn't seen anywhere. And this was actually at the Indie Untangled booth, because they had some exclusive yarn that was dyed for them for the event, and a couple of other things, and so they also had some enamel pins. And so this is by Twill and Print, and this is the just one more, and then it's like a little spinny wheel, so it can be like row, cup, nap, and it sort of spins around and you can have it point to whichever one you want. And I thought that was really cute, so I picked that up as well. I'd had my eye on this, but I'd never found it anywhere in stock to buy it, so picked it up in person. Then moving on to Sam, back to Sam rather, who's the dyer behind Labien. She was also incredibly generous and offered some yarn support for an upcoming design. It's not a design that I've like fully formalized exactly what it's going to be, but it's going to be some sort of garment, either a cardigan or a jumper. Not 100% sure yet what it's going to be, but it's going to be out of this gorgeousness. So this colorway I absolutely fell in love with when we got there and she first looked at her booth. This colorway is called Cecil's Armchair. It's this beautiful red, brown, sort of really deep mahogany kind of colour. It's absolutely stunning. And I didn't realise, but her DK, this is on a DK, and her DK base is an 80-10-10 merino cashmere nylon blend, which is gorgeous. And if you couldn't tell, like, you know, I really like this colour since I'm wearing it as well. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's that same sort of really dark browny red. This is more plummy red, but this is definitely a more brownish red. It's absolutely stunning. Absolutely love it. So I was somewhat secretly hoping that this that she wouldn't sell out this colorway, and she didn't. So there was 5 skeins left at the end, so I nabbed those, and then I grabbed 2 contrasting colors to go with it. One is Feeling Leafy, which is the green one, and the other one is Acorn Dust, which is this really beautiful, again, sort of like taupey, creamy neutral with some speckles in it as well. So it's going to be some sort of pullover cardigan with some colour work elements in it, whether it's actual colour work or striping or something. I haven't fully formulated the plans yet, but this will be something probably for next autumn, maybe in the run up to Rhinebeck. This will be released as like, this might be my Rhinebeck sweater for next year. Because one thing I forgot to mention, I did actually pick up this yarn at Rhinebeck last year to knit my Rhinebeck sweater for this year. So maybe that'll be what this will become, my next year's Rhinebeck sweater and design. Maybe I'll actually design a Rhinebeck sweater. That'll be fun, wouldn't it? And yes, that's what this is going to be. And then I purchased a skein of sock yarn from Sam as well, and this is in the Suit Coat colorway. It's her 80-20 superwash merino nylon blend, and again going for those more traditionally masculine colors, but with a little bit of fun speckling in there as well. So I actually think my brother would probably wear socks like these out of this to work, so that'll probably be who these are knit for. So yeah, this will probably be for my brother. And finally, I got to chat with the lovely Rebecca from Fuse Fibre. I've seen her at a couple of shows before. The most recent one was VKL in January. Got to chat with her there, and we're actually working on something together for next year. A couple of things actually, but one of the things we're going to work on together next year is actually the last pattern club of the year, and which is going to be aimed at more like gift knitting things. And so I picked up these 2 skeins from her, again as yarn support for one of those designs. This is absolutely gorgeous. This is, so we've got Plum Tree, which is this purple, and Apiary, which is actually a really popular colorway of hers, and I can totally see why. How beautiful is this? It's a lovely neutral with lots of fun speckles in it. And then with this beautiful bold Plum Tree. I think these are going to look really, really beautiful together. Again, I'm thinking something colour work. I haven't fully formulated the plan yet, but I'm really excited about it. And these are both on her Fused Merino DK, 100% superwash merino wool, 250 yards in 115 grams. And I should say the Lavender Loon DK is 231 yards and 100 grams. And the sock yarns are all pretty standard sock amounts, somewhere in the region of 400 to 460 yards per skein. I forgot to mention each one individually. Okay, so that was in the Untangled, and now moving on to Rhinebeck. I will be honest, the majority of the yarn came from in the Untangled. That is the way it turned out. But I did pick up a lot of knitting associated things at Rhinebeck, as well as some yarn stuff. So first off, I will show you something that I did not purchase and did not come from Rhinebeck, but one of my friends, my friend Sarah, who spins, I had given her some fibre that I had to spin for me, and she gave them back to me at Rhinebeck because it was the first chance I got to see her after she'd done them. And so these both skeins came out of fingering weights. This one is absolutely beautiful. This is a fractal 3-ply, 14 wraps per inch, 344 yards in the skein, and this was by Knitting Colour, I think, the fibre. Absolutely beautiful. And there was this skein, which doesn't say who the fibre was by, and I can't remember now, but this is a 2-ply 15 wraps per inch light fingering, 434 yards in the skein. It's absolutely beautiful. Let me show you these up close so you can see them. The barber poling is just amazing. So thank you, Sarah. You are, as always, very talented with your spinning. Then also, I should say, most of these things were actually purchased on the second day of Rhinebeck rather than the first day. I always view the Saturday as the socializing day and getting to chat to people and see people day, and the Sunday as the more relaxed shopping day. So that's just how I see it, and how I feel a lot of people feel about it as well. I would suggest, if you ever do decide to go to Rhinebeck and you can swing it to work out that way, that you stay for the Sunday as well, because I feel like the Sunday at Rhinebeck is very chilled. It's very chilled out compared to the Saturday, and it's lovely. I think I will always try and go on a Sunday if I manage to go for the weekend. And I don't know if you can tell or not, but I did talk a lot this last weekend, and I am starting to lose my voice a little bit. It is a bit hoarse, but it's starting to come back, and yeah, so just a fair warning, if I start to sound a bit croaky, that's why. I picked up a couple of skeins from Into the World. They always have like a little sale rack on the Sunday, and I just really love these two colours, so I picked these up as well from them. And again, I'll preface this, I actually only ended up paying for one because they're just so lovely, and they gifted me one of the skeins because, I mean, we've worked together in the past, and I always stop by and say hi to them at their booths and shows and things, and they're just really, really lovely people. So yes, these are the two colorways that I picked up. These, so we've got, this one here is called Moscow Mule, and this one is called Spinner's End, this one. And they were like on the sale rack, because I think they were seconds, like they didn't quite come out how they expected. Well, there was something different with them that wasn't quite right for the colorway, but to be honest, they're still beautiful, and they will make some gorgeous socks. And both of these are resist dyed on their Pakoku sock base, which is a 75-25 superwash merino nylon blend. Then I also stopped by the Loop booth, and Loop is really popular for their Loop fibre bumps. They're really well known for those fibre bumps that people spin up. And I'd actually gotten a message from Stephanie, who is the maker behind Loop, saying that she wanted to send me some yarn because she's just launched a range of yarn as part of her brand. You know, because I think typically her stuff is aimed at spinners, but now she's launching yarn to sort of appeal to knitters as well. And she wanted to send me some to try out. And then I mentioned that I was going to be at Rhinebeck, and I'd stop by and say hi to her. She said, well, why don't you just come by and pick out something while you're there for a design, like specifically for a design. So I said, okay, great. So I stopped by, and on the Saturday her booth was absolutely crazy, packed, full of people. I did take a look at what she had, but I didn't really get a lot of time to properly chat with her on the Saturday, so I didn't end up picking up anything that day, and knowing full well I was going to go back the day after. So I went back on the Sunday, and it was really nice because I got to properly chat with her. We got to like catch up and really discuss some things, some ideas, which I think we were both quite excited about. Like I said, the weekend was incredibly inspiring. And so the line of yarn that she's come out with is this. So they're meant to be like coordinating skeins. So you have one skein, they're both 3-ply skeins. So one skein has 2 plies of the neutral and 1 ply of the blue. And this one has 2 plies of the blue and 1 ply of the neutral. So they coordinate, they go together, but they're kind of opposites. And she also had this pairing as well. So you got 2 strands of the lighter blue, 1 of the dark, and then 2 plies of the darker blue and 1 of the lighter one. And she hadn't really thought of it in this, she hadn't really looked at it in this light, but I was saying to her, these 2 pairings actually go really well together as like a gradient, because the blue, the lighter blue, well, is actually the same color in all 4. So all 4 of them have one strand or one ply, which is this blue color. So that ties them all together really beautifully. And so yeah, I was really excited by that idea, and she was so excited about it. So these are going to be a shawl design that's coming up. And so the base is actually a 100% extra fine merino, 220 yards and 100 grams. It's a worsted weight, so it's going to be a really squishy, really warm shawl, and I'm so excited about it, and I can't wait to share this with you guys. I'm hoping to get this one cast on pretty soon as well, so yay. Sorry if you can't tell, I'm really excited about all these new designs that I'm going to be coming up with over the next year. Other things that I picked up, sort of deviating from the yarn for a second, other things that I picked up at the event are, I picked up a little alpaca ornament, this little fuzzy grey guy. Super soft. It's a needle felted alpaca ornament for our Christmas tree. We are collecting Christmas ornaments from when we travel, and so I had to pick up one from Rhinebeck. And then in the food tent, I didn't actually make it to the food tent last year when we went to Rhinebeck, but in the food tent there's lots of good things, but there again I didn't have a whole ton of space in my case to take stuff back. But I did pick up one of these pots. It's called Gobs of Garlic. They had a couple of other seasoning blends. It's a seasoning blend essentially. They had a couple of others, but I thought I'd just stick with the original. It tasted pretty good with the sample they had. It goes basically on everything, and it's just a blend of where is it, garlic, onion, salt, and a variety of spices and herbs in there. So I think a tub of this was like $10 or something, so I thought I'd give it a go, and like I said, it tasted pretty good, so it smells amazing. I also picked up a couple of wool dryables. These are actually going to go to my parents because we don't have a dryer, but they do, and they currently have a couple of plastic dryables, and I wanted to get them some wool ones to use instead. So that'll go to them when I see them next. I did also pick up a needle felted catnip toy for the boys, which I gave to them last night, so they've already been playing with it, and Derek's been destroying it. And if I remember, I will insert the video clip of him playing with it here. Okay, a couple of other things I picked up. I picked up a set of coloured stitch markers from Cocoa Knits. So they're these rainbow coloured stitch markers, and they're actually metal as well, so they've got a good sort of weight to them. And if you have one of those like knitters, like magnetic wrist thingies, they attach to that as well. I don't have one of those. So I just picked up the markers, and I got them in the larger size, so they got up to US 13 or 9mm. But this is the sort of size that I already use of this style of marker, so I felt like I was happy using them on all my needles sizes, so that's what I went with. They also gave me a little pencil, and I also picked up, so that was from the Cocoa Knits booth, was actually in the bookshop section at Rhinebeck. I also picked up a couple of pins while I was there. I picked up two of the same one. It's like the feminist bomb, or like I guess like the F bomb, I guess it's supposed to be. So one's for me and one is actually for a friend of mine who's not a knitter but is a feminist, and it was her birthday that Rhinebeck weekend and I wasn't there for her birthday, so I wanted to pick her up a little pin. I also at the bookstore picked up a book for Layla because it seems to become this little, I say it's a tradition, but it's only happened twice. But every time I go to Rhinebeck, I get her a little book. So I picked up this one. This is When Your Llama Needs a Haircut. They had a whole like set. There was one about an elephant, one about a monkey, and one about a lion, I think. But I picked up the llama one because of course I would get the llama book. And the author was actually there as well, so she signed it for Layla, which was really sweet. And yeah, I haven't actually given this to her yet, but hopefully she will enjoy this. It's a very cute book. And speaking of Layla, I also got her a little t-shirt from the Madder Root stall. Actually, one of Shayna, one of my housemates at Rhinebeck, had picked up this t-shirt for her son, and I saw it and I was like, oh my goodness, that is the cutest thing. And then I went back and we went back the next day and I had to get one for Layla. So I picked this one up for her. It is actually surprisingly, it's in the 40 size, which sounds huge considering she's only 20 months old. But I put it up against a couple of her other t-shirts and it's not that much bigger, to be honest. So I'm glad I sized up, because at least then she can wear it longer as well. Hopefully, assuming she doesn't ruin it one day. But even if she doesn't wear it straight away, she'll be able to grow into it, which is good. And I also picked up some buttons. Oh, also another pin. So actually from the Madder Root store, they also had a Rhinebeck 2018 pin, which I picked up as well. And so from the button stand, and if you've been to Rhinebeck, I'm pretty sure you'll know what I mean by the button stand. There's always the one stall that sells all the buttons. I picked up 6 toggles, so 6 wooden toggles, either all for one garment or to split them up for a couple of garments, depending what I end up using them for. None of these buttons were bought with anything specifically in mind, but with the idea that they could be used for things, and I tried to get enough of each button to work. And then I picked up a set of these buttons, these silver sort of metal buttons, and so this one, it shows the right side, that's the wrong side, the back of the buttons, the front. So this is just a slightly textured metal button, which I thought was quite nice. I got some simple sort of cream ones, which basically would go with most things, so no issues there with colours. And then I picked up this set of wooden red ones, which was slightly more 3D effect. Like you can see, it's slightly more of a cone shaped button, which I thought was interesting, and would work for a bunch of things as well. So those are the buttons I picked up. And the final yarn thing that I got was I actually went by a couple of times just to chat with Kelsey to the Primrose Yarn Company booth. And like always, Kelsey's incredibly generous, and she, again, I wanted to use some of her yarn for one of the mini skein patterns for the club next year. And she was very generous, and she pretty much grabbed this bag and threw it at me and told me to go. So she gave me one of her, again, as yarn support, she gave me one of her sets of 30 mini skeins. So this is 30 20-gram mini skeins in 30 different colorways for any sort of mini skein project desire that you would ever have. So this is going to be another shawl. So that club is actually going to have 2 shawl designs, and the other designs are going to be other accessories. So so yeah, super excited to see this, how this will knit up as well. I need to, again, most of these designs, whilst I know what they're going to be, like what the item is going to be, I haven't fully solidified the actual details of the pattern. So I've got a lot of work ahead of me, which I'm really excited about. This is the sort of work that I love to do. So it doesn't really feel like work, which is great. And yeah, so that's everything that I got at Rhinebeck. Like I said, a lot of the yarn stuff was yarn support, but everything else I bought myself, and the yarn that I did buy myself I told you about. So hopefully that is very clear and transparent. I'll be back in just one second with what I've been knitting on whilst at Rhinebeck. I had a few knitting projects that I worked on whilst at Rhinebeck. First of all, I had this pair of socks, which is, the yarn is by Legacy Fibre Arts, and the colorway is Kirk. It is on their steel toe space, which is 75/25 superwash merino nylon, and it's just a speckled multicolored pair of socks. Nice and fun. I was just past the heels when I left for the airport, and I finished the socks on the plane, unsurprisingly for most. I mean, unsurprisingly, I don't think people are surprised by that, is basically what I was trying to say. This is actually pair number 38 that I have finished this year, so that's pretty exciting. And once I finished these, I promptly cast on another pair of socks, because that's what I did. These actually aren't quite finished yet, but I will show you them anyway. So this is, the yarn is by Junk Yarn. It is on her Boss sock base, which is an 80/20 blend, I believe. I don't know if I have the tag in here. But it's in the Luna colorway. So Luna, I'm assuming it's Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, because all her colorways are named after women. And so this pattern is actually the London Bee Ridge sock pattern. I did a different cuff on it. I was trying out a new cuff pattern, and so I'm not going to show you that in too much detail, but it's the London Bee Ridge sock pattern with a garter, German short row heel and mini heel flap. And I'm about a little over halfway down the foot on this one, and the other one is basically just ready for the toe decreases now. This one's ready for the toe. So this will be finished today at some point, probably later today. And yeah, so those were the two pairs of socks that I was working on. These were both knit on 2.25mm needles, and yes, I did take them on the plane, and no, I had no trouble. Absolutely no trouble with socks on the plane. Those were those. The other two projects I worked on, and I actually cast both of these on the Wednesday night that I got to New York. And on the Wednesday night I stayed with the lovely Jacqueline from Brooklyn Knitfolk, and so she kindly let me sleep on her sofa for one night, and we went out for dinner, and we just had a really lovely evening, to be honest. And later, once we got back to her apartment, I sat down and cast on these two projects. There's a theme with the yellows on this trip, but I wanted to cast on Layla's Christmas presents, or at least her knitted Christmas presents. So when we were in Paris a couple of weeks ago, we stopped into a store, and Layla fell in love with this commercially made yellow knit hat, and I couldn't, obviously in good conscience, I could never buy her a store-bought knitted hat, because it would destroy me. So I decided to knit her one, and I didn't have a pattern in mind specifically, so I just sort of made one up, and I decided to do it in more of a medium adult size, because the one she put on in the store was an adult size, and it just looked really cute on her. And I will be putting a bobble on this one, but I haven't yet. So I actually just used the London Bee Ridge pattern and like this modified ribbing that I really liked on the socks, so I thought I'd try it out on the hat, and I'm really quite chuffed with how that turned out. And I did a square sort of decreasing on the top. So like I said, I kind of just made this up on the fly as I was going. I didn't have a pattern, but I've knit and designed plenty of hats by now that I pretty much know the numbers of what I wanted to do for the different sizes. So this does actually fit on my head as well. Like, it's a pretty comfortable fit for me. So part of the reason why I did it in a bigger size was, well, the one she wore in the store looked really cute on her, even though it was a bit big, but also because then I could potentially wear it if she's not wearing it. So because I also like colour a lot. The yarn is by Autumn and Indigo. It's in the Gold Rush colorway. It's actually a sport weight that I held double. There were 250g skeins, so I held it double to get more of a worsted / Aran weight, and I did knit it on 4mm needles, so it feels really nice and squishy and dense. And I do have some yarn left over, so I will be making a pom-pom to go on top. But the reason why I haven't yet, and I'll explain, is because of this one. So this is the other project that I cast on for her, and this is actually the mix and match pullover for children. This is in the 2 to 4 year size. It looks pretty narrow at the moment, but it's also because I've knit it longer, a little bit longer than the pattern called for. The mix and match for children cardigan pullover, sorry, is one of my designs. And I knit the plain version this time, but I've just striped it. So the striping isn't in the pattern, it's just something I decided to do for this one. So I've striped it out of this yarn, and the yarn is by Labien. It's the Merino DK. In the yellow is the Yellow Brick Road Graffiti, and the grey is Patagonia. Those are the colourways. And as you can see, I still have the sleeves to do. I would have been able to do the sleeves whilst I was at Rhinebeck, or at least start them, but I realised I didn't have the right cable length with me for my interchangeable needles to be able to do sleeves. I only had 16-inch circulars, and can't really do sleeves with 16-inch circulars. So that's had to go on to hold until I'm back, and now I'm back, I can start these. I think once those socks are finished, I will finish these sleeves off. But why I held off doing the pom-pom is because if there's any of this yellow left over, I'm going to add it to the yellow from this hat to create the pom-pom, because I don't think there's enough yellow of this left over to make a good fluffy pom-pom that I want for it. So this is going to be a little Christmas present combo, a very Grello theme for her Christmas knits this year. So I'm pretty chuffed with that. And I always do the length on the body long for Layla. I always have, and I probably always will. And we've noticed recently anyway that she's actually quite long in the torso compared to her leg length. But when I'm buying clothes for her, I'm finding now for t-shirts and tops and stuff, I'm having to buy 2 to 3 year size or 3 year size t-shirts and tops. They might be a bit long in the sleeve, but in the torso they're the right length, or they're long enough to cover like her back and stuff. Whereas with trousers, she's more true to size, like her actual age size. So 18 to 24 months trousers fit her pretty well right now. So yeah, so for that reason I will probably always knit her jumpers a couple of inches longer than any pattern writes, just to make sure that she has good coverage. I don't know, I guess maybe because I've always had issues finding clothes that fit me lengthwise properly, and I've also had issues with like my kidneys getting cold and or whatever's, and I don't ever like to have my lower back like exposed or out or not covered properly. So I feel like that with Layla as well for some reason, just the way I am. But that's basically what I knit on whilst at Rhinebeck. I finished a pair of socks. I started, and actually I got just past the heels, a couple of repeats past the heels on both of those by the time I got home yesterday. I knit the feet on both of those, or have much of it I've knit yesterday after I got home. I knit a hat and the body of a pullover. So pretty good going, I feel. That's a fair amount of knitting. I didn't actually knit at all whilst at any of the events, because there just wasn't any time, or it was too cold on the second day of Rhinebeck to even pull out my knitting. It was, I could barely feel my fingers half the time. But yeah, had a really good weekend. It was so much fun to catch up with people. Honestly, with Sam as well, like I spent most of my time with Sam, to be honest, because we were roommates and we hung out together, and she was essentially my driver for the weekend, which was really kind of her. This was the first time we'd actually met in person. We've been friends pretty much since the very beginning when I started my podcast. We got to know each other actually through the Andre Sue Knits podcast with Andy. She hosted a swap at one point way back when, and Sam and I both signed up, and we weren't actually paired up together, but we decided to pair ourselves up and do a swap anyway. And yeah, we just got chatting, and we've been online friends ever since. We've always just like, you know, talked online through Instagram, through email, and she sent me yarn for the garden gnome hoodie which I designed for Layla, and the star hat. And yeah, so this is actually the first time we got to meet, which was so exciting, and genuinely it felt like I was just catching up with someone I'd known for years, because she is someone I've known for years. I've just never met her in real life. So that was very exciting. It was literally like just picking up with an old friend. There was no awkwardness, there was no like feeling weird or anything. It was just really nice to finally get to give her a hug, which was lovely. And yeah, all in all, an amazing weekend. Made some great new friends, got to catch up with some old friends, and just had a really good time, to be honest. So yeah, I think I will leave it at that. Thank you for joining me with this video and the previous video, and I hope you had a lovely weekend if you went to Rhinebeck, and if not, I just hope you had a lovely weekend. I hope you have a good few days, weeks coming up. Until next time, hopefully it won't be too long. I will see you again soon. All right, take care. Bye.